Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're taking a look at a new product from Angstadt Arms. This is what they call the Vanquish. It is an integrally suppressed barrel assembly. Now, just to start, let me say they offer this in a bunch of configurations. They have a 16-inch version, which is what I have. They also have a 10.5-inch version, and then you can get it as either a plain barrel, which is what I did, and just assemble that barrel onto my existing KP9 carbine, or you can get it as a complete upper, or you can get it as a complete firearm. Now, what makes this different from other systems out there is that it is a full integrally suppressed system. So it is a barrel and a silencer essentially in one package. There are some pros and some cons to this. So the way it works, before we get to pros and cons, is you've got a full-length barrel. There are, in fact, no baffles in the suppressor body. There's no exit hole at the front either. And what happens is when you fire, gas comes out of these ports in the barrel and pressurizes into the suppressor tube here. There is, like I said, there's no front exit hole, so gas doesn't actually leave the suppressor until, well, gas doesn't really ever leave through the front of the suppressor, but until the bullet reaches the end of the barrel and exits, all the gas is contained. And so what you're getting is suppression through very large volume. You're reducing the pressure of the gas in the barrel because it's got all of this extra space to expand into, reduce its pressure, reduce its temperature. So once the bullet leaves, the gas pressure in the tube goes back through these holes in the barrel and then whoop out the muzzle. I should also point out that the rear set of holes here in the barrel are actually threaded. And if you always do shoot subsonic ammunition and you don't want to sacrifice its velocity, you can actually plug these with little set screws that Angstadt provides to maintain the velocity of an already subsonic loading. Now, the advantages to this system are, first off, you have only one tax stamp for a 16-inch version. If you're going to have like a 10-inch barrel and put a 6-inch long suppressor on it, you're going to pay a second tax stamp for a short barrel rifle as well as the silencer. On the one hand, that means you can move the silencer around to other guns, but you're also paying a second tax stamp. If you're going to leave it on the carbine, maybe it's more economical, makes more sense to just have a 16-inch long suppressor that's a single tax stamp, which is, this is a single tax stamp gun. So there, you've got that. There are no baffles in it, which is a pro and a con as well. So baffles serve to further slow down the expansion of gas, but that's normally necessary because the gas is going to exit out the front of the suppressor as well as exiting out the muzzle behind the bullet. In this case, perhaps we don't need baffles so much because, well, it's just containing the gas anyway. But not having baffles does mean that the gas isn't going to be slowed down as much as it could. On the bright side, that means you've got zero chance of a baffle strike. Angstadt really likes to pitch that as a pro to the system. To my mind, I've never been that worried about baffle strikes. As long as you have a properly made barrel and suppressor, they're going to be concentric and shouldn't be an issue. But it's definitely not an issue with this because it's a full-length barrel. Cleaning is simplified. There are no baffles to clean, although it's also not been a big concern of mine for suppressors. And the system is overall less expensive than it's on the less expensive end of what you would pay for a system like this. So Angstadt is charging $650 for the complete barrel assembly. If you were going to build your own carbine and you want to source a barrel and a suppressor, and then you're also going to need a muzzle device to connect the suppressor, you're going to be hard-pressed to have less than $650 in it. So it is a good economics option for some people. Now, these vent holes in the barrel are also intended to, advertised as, reducing the velocity of bullets to below the speed of sound, which means you don't get a supersonic crack. That's a big component of the noise in a firearm, and the suppressor can't change it. If the bullet's supersonic when it leaves the muzzle, it's going to make a loud snap, and it's, to my mind, it's not really going to be a hearing-safe gun. So, shoot subsonics, or ideally, and this is a system that dates back to, say, the MP5 SD and probably guns before that as well, where you bleed off some of the propellant gas so that the bullet never accelerates up to the speed of sound. So we're going to take this out to the range and we're going to see if this system actually works. Actually, I should show you real quick how this actually assembles before we get to the range, but it's very simple. So this is where my handguard threads on. The suppressor tube attaches to the barrel using these threads at the end of the barrel. the end of the suppressor right here is threaded. So all I have to do to assemble this is slide the barrel on, line this up at the end, like so, and then just screw this down. I'll put the handguard on and I'll see you guys out at the range. So I'm going to start with a magazine of regular Fiocchi 115 grain 9mm ball. This is sort of your generic plinking ammo, nothing expensive, nothing specialty. This is what you're most likely to actually have to go shooting with. Let me go ahead and fire a round just up onto the mountain so that you can hear it without an impact. That doesn't sound too bad. Honestly, I'm not sure if that's actually dropping subsonic or not, so let's put it on the chronograph. 1067. Our average of 5 shots is 1,106 FPS. That velocity is indeed subsonic, but man, it is just barely subsonic. The speed of sound is generally considered to be about 1,125 feet per second, but it does depend on humidity, temperature, elevation, barometric pressure, a lot of small factors, and so it can go up or down a bit. In addition, like with 1106, we are right on the cusp of that supersonic boundary. And so sooner or later, you're going to get rounds that are on the upper end of the bell curve of velocity distributions that will break the sound barrier. So I really wish that there was a little bit more velocity reduction. I didn't have any 124 grain ammo to test out. I suspect that would have been pretty solidly, reliably under the supersonic threshold, just because it's a little slower to begin with, a little heavier bullet. It's worth pointing out that the systems like the MP5 SD that also used a series of ports in the barrel like this have a little more port volume, a little more port space, and a little closer to the chamber, and they do a better job of reducing the velocity. So this exact ammo in an MP5 SD would be very reliably below the speed of sound. So this, by the way, does mesh very well with the data that Angstadt has posted on their own website of this sort of testing. They say that they were doing testing on a day where the speed of sound was 1,149 feet per second, and they had a couple different brands of 115 grain generic 9mm that clocked in like the 1120s for velocity. So really right there on the cusp. If you're shooting with ears, no big deal at all. But if you're trying to ensure 100% hearing safe subsonic ammunition, this is just a little too close for comfort for me. Often people will use 1,000 feet per second as sort of the rule of thumb of definitely subsonic ammunition. And this is 10% above that. The next thing I want to try is 124 grain Winchester service grade ammo, which I believe is going to be relatively hot. And if the Fiocchi wasn't subsonic, I don't expect this will be either. This is like your 9mm NATO full power ammo. I can definitely feel a stiffer recoil. Again, let me put one up way up onto the mountain so there's no sound. So I can hear the sonic boom from that round bouncing around the range and the hillside that we're shooting into. So that is definitely supersonic. Well, let's go back to the chronograph and see what it's actually clocking in at. 1328. Yowza, that's fast. Average is 1307. All right, last but not least, I have S&B 150 grain subsonic ammunition. So this is advertised loaded to be subsonic out of a regular firearm. So it'll definitely be subsonic out of this. This will give us an idea what subsonic ammo ought to sound like. And onto the mountain. You hear a little bit of a pop out of the muzzle.
You hear a thwack and a little bit of reverb when the bullet actually impacts the mountain, but you do not hear that supersonic crack sort of reverberating around the range. .902, so average of 5 shots exactly, 900 FPS. That is a proper subsonic projectile. So while I like the Vanquish here as a suppressor, and it does a good, decent job of suppressing, it doesn't actually make everything subsonic. So is that a serious killer problem? No, not really. It's like, as long as you go into this understanding what you're going to get, running 147s or 150 grain bullets, it will be subsonic. And it doesn't have to be subsonic to be fun and to be actually suppressed. Just if you want it like actual hearing safe, no ear protection, you're going to want subsonic ammunition, or at least 147s to run in this. Now, a couple other things to point out about it. Angstadt deliberately made this a 1.5-inch diameter suppressor tube because the standard for AR-15 handguards is like 1 3/4 inch in diameter, and you get enough difference, enough extra space around the suppressor tube that you can mount M-lock on it. There are some, like for example Q's Honey Badger, where the suppressor is so close in diameter to the handguard to maximize the suppressor volume that all of your front M-lock is essentially just wasted because there's no space to put the little nut to attach anything. So I don't actually need a vertical front grip on this because it's got a nice standoff spaced handguard that doesn't get particularly hot. But I put this grip, this is a slate black mini VFG, by the way, from the guys at 9-Hole Reviews. I really like these things. I put that on there just to demonstrate that you can, in fact, mount M-lock accessories over the Vanquish can, which is a nice benefit. If you wanted to put a light out here, a laser out here, whatever sort of accessories you want to put on there, you can do it with this system, which is cool. .9mm carbines are super fun. Suppressed 9mm carbines are even more fun. They're a great introductory weapon. They're a great novice's shooting piece without the sharp noise and the hefty recoil. They're really good for people to learn how to shoot on without developing flinches. They're just really fun firearms. So I like seeing more suppressors coming out into the marketplace. I think the Vanquish is a cool idea with the baffleless can. On the scale of suppressors and 9mm AR barrels, it's a pretty inexpensive option for people. And it's a cool one. So, like I said at the beginning, they do offer this as everything from just a bare barrel for you to do yourself, well, barrel with the suppressor cover, all the way up to a complete firearm. So you can check them out at Angstadt Arms and see all of their options and price points. But it's a fun way to go about a range day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.